So what you're saying is I have to put looters in the game.
You have to put it somewhere. And you have to put it somewhere that it makes sense.
I just don't know where it's gonna fit in the world.
Put it in. Why don't you just put it in New Walton?
Oh, I'm here.
It's a looters, Norv. They're all over America.
Put it in New Walton. It makes the most sense in the thing that is literally just New York.
We're not. You say it's in. We're not in America in our game, you guys.
But New Walton is
Unless-
basically New York City.
That's true.
It's a visualized name. Put it there. Or somewhere in the... I don't remember the acronym for it.
We were getting upset, Ethan, because I was saying I probably wasn't going to put looters in the actual game.
Maybe not even looters, but you gotta at least
I would say
include the loot's worth
you
surprise.
You need to make a Looters One Shot, Norb.
The Looters One Shot.
Looters.
So, one-shot idea time? Couple of caveats before we begin. DnD Looters is the brainchild of content creator JoCat, link below. I also feel like I should try and explain my philosophy for one-shots. Generally, I try to make one-shots that last around 2 to 3 hours that focus on role-played centered tasks, and they have one dedicated combat encounter. That's what I'm going to do here, so if you're looking for a more combat-centered encounter, this won't be it. So, without further ado, here's my idea for a looters-themed one-shot for 3 to 5 level 5 characters. But PS, you can change the combat up any way you want. The leveling and character number is only an approximation based on how I design the encounter. The idea for this one-shot is that it's kind of like an initiation day for the new hires at the local neighborhood looters. Trademark. Our party will come in during the middle of a fairly slow dinner hour, and there's 4 customer groups, each of which we will get to in a second. So, stage 1. The party will introduce themselves to the manager, Jerry, a no-nonsense female warlock, I guess, who has been through this routine far too many times. Jerry will introduce herself and take the party to the next important member of the team, Lutzworth, the resident mimic and head chef. Jerry will explain that a fellow employee, Roger, went out on a smoke break and hasn't returned yet. She'll excuse herself to go outside and look for Roger, leaving the party to take care of some tasks in the restaurant. Essentially, the party will divvy up responsibilities for taking care of the various customers. This brings us to stage 2. Here, the party will engage in 3 different tasks, where, if they succeed, they'll be provided with a boon for the upcoming combat. First, though, have one of your players get the check for a customer in the corner. The customer should compliment the new mushroom hot sauce and should look a little sick based on a very low-level medicine check. A high medicine roll will reveal that the man's lips appear to be orange, not a result of hot sauce, but because of an acute orange infection. More on that later. After that interaction, we move on to the tasks. First, there's a bachelorette or bachelor party that wants to order. The kick here is that the bachelor or bachelorette will have an extremely long and specific order which the soon-to-be bride or groom will try to ensure that the character remembers. Base it off of a menu if you have one, and make sure that you, the DM, have the correct order written down. Have the player report the order to Lutzworth in the kitchen. The player succeeds on this task if they can correctly match the order. This is very important. Don't allow the player to say, "Oh, I just repeat the order." Make them try to remember it. This challenge will be a great reward for note takers, or I guess maniacs who choose the keen mind feat for a one-shot. Anyway, it'll be a real issue for those who have a poor memory. To make it easier, or perhaps a little bit more fair, consider a history check or some other relevant check to recall the bits and pieces of the order. If the players are successful, they'll be rewarded with a tip, a magical ring that the soon-to-be bride or groom replaced with their wedding band. I would suggest a ring of protection, but feel free to mix it up depending on how you deal with the fight at the end of the session. Task 2 involves a family of goblins sitting around a table covered in birthday decorations. Daddy or Mommy Goblin will ask the character waiting the table to sing happy birthday for their little one. They'll note that the child is having a particularly rough time because no one came to their party, and they'll hand you a piece of paper with their child's name on it. The player succeeds if they can sing happy birthday and pronounce the child's name correctly. Of course, you, the DM, know the correct pronunciation. Feel free to use a really strangely spelled word or even perhaps some runes thrown in with some regular letters. Your players may choose to just try a pronunciation or to do some research with the family to kind of suss it out beforehand. Some well-placed charisma checks or creative spell use may reveal the name. If a player simply asks the goblin family, "How do you pronounce this?" just have them say something like, oh, just as it's written. You can even have them get a little bit offended if they keep trying that strategy. This is a great roleplay moment to have your players sing the song out to hear the pronunciation. Also, feel free to roll performance to see how the song is received by the rest of the restaurant. Upon a success, the child will unwrap their present to find a shiny new +1 or +2 weapon of your choice. More on that later. Finally, the last task relates to a dwarven character sitting alone at the bar. This character is the founder of the Golden Oak Brewery and is trying to think of names for his new line of autumnal ales. He'll be writing ideas that he likes on a napkin and will ask his server for help. The players succeed on this one if they can think of a name for his new premier ale. Feel free to keep a description of beers, like a flavor profile, to inspire your players. Give them 3 chances with a straight check with a very high DC for that check. This challenge will reward cooperation, so feel free to award proficiency, bonuses, or even advantage to a name that was thought up by 2 or 3 people. Upon a success, the characters will get a free sample of the ale that they helped to name. There are a lot of fun potions that you could flavor this as, but I would go with a potion of fire breathing. After you've roleplayed all the tasks, it's time to move into the end game, which is stage 3. At this point, all of the customers will be eating their food and Jerry won't have come back yet. Feel free to split up your party across the restaurant with various minor tasks, and have Lutzworth call a party member back into the kitchen and explain that he needs a fresh batch of the mushroom hot sauce from the back room. Up to this point, you can rule that the back room has been locked, and maybe Lutzworth gives them the key. When that player goes to the back, they'll find Roger, the employee who has been missing, facing an open refrigerator with their back to the door, all spooky-like. Be sure to describe a small orange puddle on the floor near Roger's feet. As the player goes to investigate, they'll notice that Roger is now mindless, his face covered in a bright orange sauce. He lunges at the party member. All around the restaurant, horrified groans can be heard as consumption of the hot sauce turns the patrons into horrifying monsters. And you guessed it, it's time to roll initiative. I personally find the ghoul stat block good for this moment, but feel free to have the patrons change into whatever monster you want. As far as how many enemies you need, just make sure to balance the number of enemies with the size and the level of your party. I feel that 8 or so ghouls is approximately right for the number and level of these adventurers. I'll leave this site in the description, which does a pretty good job of doing the official Dungeon Master's Guide combat math for you. Of course, take that with a grain of salt, use whatever method you prefer. And that's it. Have the fight out, allow your party members to use the benefits they earned through completing tasks, especially now that the ownerless +1 or +2 weapon is lying next to the zombie toddler. They can use tables as cover or hide in whatever nooks and crannies you've designed for your restaurant. When the smoke is cleared, feel free to have Jerry come back in and assign cleaning duties to whichever party member struggled with the most tasks. Ultimately, this is more of a playful one-shot with an emphasis on role-playing. I would challenge you to really bask in the campiness of working at a restaurant themed around, well, Hooters. And that's all I got for you. If you'd like to see more one-shot ideas, please leave a comment below and don't forget to like and subscribe. Please? Please? Okay, I'm super hungry for some reason. I think I'm gonna go order chicken wings.